I am the dust keeper. Some places only come alive when the world sleeps, when the day shift clocks out and the fluorescent lights hum in empty corridors. When you're the only soul awake for miles, that's when things happen. Things that don't make it into incident reports. Things your co-workers whisper about, but never fully explain. Tonight, I bring you 3 true stories from night shift workers. People who learned that the graveyard shift earned its name for a reason. The dust I collected from these locations carries a weight, a coldness that shouldn't exist in places people work every day. Listen carefully, because one day you might find yourself working nights, and when you do, you'll remember these stories. This happened in March 2022 at a 24-hour warehouse in rural Ohio, the kind that supplies auto parts to dealerships across 3 states. Marcus Webb worked inventory control on the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Just him and 1 security guard in a building the size of 3 football fields. Marcus had been doing this for 8 months. The pay was decent. The work was mindless. Scan items, update databases, walk the aisles, making sure nothing was out of place. The overnight differential made it worth dealing with the isolation. His first week on the job, the day shift supervisor gave him 1 instruction that seemed odd at the time. Aisle 47, don't go down there between 2 and 3 a.m. If you need something from that section, get it before 2 or wait until after 3. No exceptions. Marcus asked why. The supervisor just shook his head. You'll understand if you break the rule. Don't break the rule. For 8 months, Marcus followed that instruction without question. Aisle 47 was in the back corner of the warehouse. Industrial shelving 30 feet high. Mostly obsolete parts that rarely got pulled, easy enough to avoid. But on March 14th, he got an urgent request at 2:17 a.m. A dealership in Columbus needed a specific transmission part by morning for an emergency repair. Of course, it was in aisle 47. Marcus stood at the entrance to the aisle, staring down the long corridor of shelving. The overhead lights flickered slightly. They always did. Old wiring. He checked his watch. 2:19 a.m. He'd be quick. In and out in 5 minutes. Rule or no rule, this was his job. He walked down the aisle, scanning shelf labels. His footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. The part he needed was at the very end, section 47Z. Naturally, at 2:24 a.m., Marcus found the part. He was reaching for it when he heard footsteps behind him. Not his echo. Different rhythm. Heavier. Getting closer. "Hey," Marcus called out. "Dave, that you?" Dave was the security guard, but Dave had bad knees. These footsteps were quick. Purposeful. Marcus turned around. The aisle was empty. The footsteps stopped. He grabbed the part and started walking back toward the main floor. That's when he noticed something that made his skin crawl. Wet footprints on the concrete floor, leading down the aisle from where he'd just come. But not his footprints. These were bare feet, adult-sized, and they hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. The footprints led past him, deeper into aisle 47, disappearing into the shadows at the far end where the lights had burned out months ago, and maintenance hadn't replaced them yet. Marcus didn't run. He walked, quickly, eyes forward. At 2:31 a.m., he emerged from aisle 47 into the main warehouse floor. He logged the part, processed the order, and tried to focus on his work. At 2:45 a.m., the warehouse phone rang, the landline they used for internal communication. Marcus picked it up. Heavy breathing. No words. Just breathing. "Dave? Is this you messing with me?" The breathing continued for 10 seconds. Then a voice. Wet. Raspy. "Wrong. You weren't supposed to come back here." The line went dead. Marcus immediately called Dave on the radio. Dave responded from the front security office. He hadn't called, hadn't left his desk all night. The internal phone system only connected to 4 locations: front office, back office, loading dock, and the supervisor's station, all of which were locked and empty except for Dave's location. Marcus didn't go near aisle 47 for the rest of his shift. At 7 a.m., when the day crew arrived, he told his supervisor what happened. The man nodded slowly, like he'd heard this before. "You're the 4th person this year. Everyone who goes down there between 2 and 3 a.m. reports the same things. Footsteps, wet footprints, the phone call. We've had the police check. We've had the place blessed. Nothing changes." "Who? What is it?" The supervisor pulled out a folder. Incident reports dating back 9 years. The warehouse had been built on the site of an old industrial laundry facility that burned down in 1987. 3 workers died in that fire. The night shift manager and 2 employees. Their bodies were found in the back section of the building, the section that would later become aisle 47. The night manager died trying to get his workers out. He failed. Now he walks those aisles every night at the time they died. 2:33 a.m. We've learned to work around it, hence the rule. Marcus transferred to day shift the following week, but sometimes, late at night, his phone rings. When he answers, there's just breathing, heavy, wet, and a voice that asks the same question. "Why did you come back here?" He never has an answer. The warehouse still operates 24 hours. The rule about aisle 47 remains in effect. New employees are told. Some listen, some don't. Those who don't always request a transfer afterward, if they come back at all. But not all night shift horror happens in warehouses. Sometimes it happens in places that are supposed to heal. Places with doctors and nurses and the hum of life support machines. Places where death is always just a room away. The dust from that location always carries a chill. But we're just getting started. If you want the full archive of documented darkness, hit that subscribe button now and join the Keeper, because the next account involves a registered nurse, a haunted hospital floor, and the terrifying sound of a woman suffocating who could not physically press her call light. Sarah Cho was a registered nurse at Mercy General Hospital in Portland, Oregon. She'd been working nights for 3 years, the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, pediatric ward mostly, kids with chronic conditions who needed round-the-clock care. Sarah preferred nights, quieter, less chaos, more time with patients. The pay bump didn't hurt either. In June 2023, the hospital underwent renovations. The pediatric ward needed fumigation and repainting. For 2 weeks, Sarah was reassigned to the adult long-term care unit, 3rd floor, room 301 through 320. This ward was different. Patients here weren't getting better. They were waiting. Some had been there for years. Comas, severe brain injuries, advanced dementia. Families visited less as time went on. The 3rd floor had a heaviness that the pediatric ward never had. Sarah's first night on the unit, the charge nurse gave her the floor orientation. 20 rooms, current census, 14 patients, 6 rooms empty due to recent discharges or other reasons. Room 309 is technically available, but we don't assign it unless we're completely full, the charge nurse said. It's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable how? You'll see if you go in there. Just trust me. Avoid it if you can. Sarah didn't think much of it. Every hospital had rooms with reputations, usually because someone died there in a particularly sad way. Healthcare workers were superstitious. She got it. Her first few nights were routine. She made her rounds, administered medications, checked vitals, documented everything. Room 309 remained empty. She walked past it dozens of times, never went in. On her 4th night, at around 1 a.m., she was charting at the nurse's station when the call light for room 309 turned on. That was strange. The room was empty. No patient. No bed even. It had been removed during the renovations. Sarah walked down the corridor. The light above room 309 was indeed lit. She pushed open the door. The room was bare. No furniture. Just an empty space with marks on the floor where the bed had been. A single window with blinds drawn. The call button panel on the wall unplugged, but the call light was on. Bright red, demanding attention. Sarah checked the panel. Someone would have had to plug it in and press the button manually. She unplugged it completely and returned to the nurse's station. At 1:22 a.m., the call light for room 309 turned on again. This time, Sarah brought another nurse with her. They opened the door together. Empty room. Call panel still unplugged. Light still on. It's been doing this for 2 years, the other nurse said quietly. Always between 1 and 2 a.m. We've had maintenance check it 17 times. They can't find any electrical fault. It shouldn't be possible, but it keeps happening. What was in this room? Who was the last patient? The nurse hesitated. Her name was Eleanor Vance. She was 34, locked-in syndrome from a stroke, fully conscious, completely paralyzed, except for her eyes. She could hear everything, understand everything, but couldn't move or speak. She was here for 11 months. What happened to her? She died last year during the night shift. The thing is, her call light was broken for her entire stay. We'd reported it to maintenance, but it was low priority because she couldn't physically press it anyway. She died at 1:33 a.m. alone. We found her during the 2 a.m. rounds. Sarah felt cold. She died needing help and couldn't call for it. Yeah, and now the call light works perfectly, but only when the room is empty. Only at night. Always at 1:33 a.m. Over the next week, Sarah watched it happen every night. At exactly 1:33 a.m., the call light for room 309 would illuminate. She started going to the room at that time, standing there, listening. On her 10th night, something changed. At 1:33 a.m., Sarah was already in room 309, waiting. The call light turned on, and then she heard it, faint, barely audible, the sound of someone trying to breathe, labored, desperate, the sound of someone suffocating who couldn't call for help. The sound lasted for 30 seconds, then stopped. The call light turned off. Sarah requested a transfer back to pediatrics immediately. She never worked the 3rd floor again, but sometimes, late at night, when she's walking past patient rooms and sees a call light illuminate, she stops. She listens, because she knows that sometimes the calls for help come from people who can no longer make them, and sometimes those calls echo long after the person is gone. Room 309 was sealed during the next renovation. The call panel was completely removed. The room is now used for storage, but staff still report seeing the light above the door turn on. At 1:33 a.m. every single night, no one goes in there anymore. They just acknowledge it. A nod to Eleanor. A recognition that she's still trying to call for help. Still hoping someone will hear. Not all night shift workers deal with the unexplained. Some deal with something worse. This is the account of James Park, night security officer at Riverside Office Plaza in Austin, Texas, a 5-story building that housed various businesses, accounting firms, insurance companies, a law office, the kind of place that empties out by 6 p.m. and stays dead until morning. James worked the overnight shift solo, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. His job was simple. Monitor the camera feeds, do periodic walkthroughs of all 5 floors, make sure doors were locked, log anything unusual. In 15 months on the job, the most unusual thing James had logged was a burst pipe on the 3rd floor. That changed in September 2023. It started with the elevator. James was at the security desk at 11:47 p.m. watching camera feeds when he noticed the elevator moving from the 1st floor to the 4th floor, then back down to the 2nd floor, then up to the 5th. The building was empty. James had done his initial walkthrough. Every office locked, every floor clear. He was alone. He pulled up the elevator camera feed. The elevator car was empty, just moving between floors. Random pattern. No one calling it. No one inside. Mechanical glitch. Had to be. James made a note to call the elevator company in the morning. At 12:03 a.m., the elevator stopped at the 1st floor. The doors opened. On the camera feed, James watched as absolutely nothing happened for 30 seconds. Then the doors closed. The elevator went to the 4th floor. The pattern continued for an hour. Elevator moving, doors opening, empty car, doors closing. At 1:15 a.m., James decided to do his floor-by-floor walkthrough early. He'd check the elevator mechanical room on the 5th floor. Maybe something was triggering the system. He took the stairs, didn't trust the elevator. As he climbed to the 2nd floor, he heard a sound that made him stop. Footsteps. Above him. On the 3rd floor. Dress shoes on tile. Click, click, click. Steady pace. Walking down a corridor. James had worked security for 8 years. He knew the difference between building sounds and human sounds. These were human. He called out, "Security, identify yourself." The footsteps stopped. James climbed to the 3rd floor, drew his flashlight. The corridor was dark. Motion sensor lights should have triggered. They didn't. He moved down the hallway, checking doors. All locked. No signs of forced entry. No one visible. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Wet footprints in the carpeted hallway, leading from the elevator area toward the far end of the floor. Fresh, still damp, as if someone had just walked through water. But there was no water, no spills, no leaks, just wet footprints appearing on dry carpet. James followed them. They led to the men's restroom. He pushed open the door, checked the stalls. Empty, sinks dry. But the footprints led directly to the last stall and stopped, as if whoever made them had simply vanished. James returned to the security desk, pulled up camera footage for the 3rd floor, rewound to 1:10 a.m., watched the corridor where he'd seen the footprints. On the footage, the hallway was empty. No one walked through. No footprints appeared. Nothing. But James had seen them. They were real. He'd photographed them on his phone. At 2:30 a.m., the elevator started moving again. This time, James watched the camera feed closely. The elevator went to the 4th floor. Doors opened, and for just a moment, 3 seconds, there was someone inside. A man, middle-aged, wearing a suit, soaking wet, staring directly at the camera. His eyes were wrong, too wide, unblinking. Then the doors closed. When they opened again on the ground floor, the elevator was empty. James reviewed the footage. The figure appeared for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to be undeniable. Not a glitch, not a shadow. A person who couldn't be there. James filed an incident report. Building management dismissed it. Equipment malfunction, lighting issues. He was working too many nights, seeing things. But James pulled the building records, found something they hadn't told him during orientation. In 2019, a man named David Chen worked on the 4th floor. Insurance adjuster, divorced, lived alone. He'd been working late one night in November. There was a flash flood warning. He left the building around 11 p.m. His car was found in the parking garage the next morning. He wasn't in it. His body was discovered 3 days later in the drainage system beneath the building. The flood had been worse than forecasted. He'd been swept away, trying to reach his car. David Chen died at approximately 11:47 p.m. on November 14th, 2019. The same time the elevator started moving on its own, the same route he would have taken from his 4th floor office. James quit 2 weeks later. He now works day shift at a hospital. He refuses to work nights. When asked why, he just says he prefers sunlight. But sometimes, when he's near an elevator, he watches to see if anyone gets off, and if someone does who looks a little too wet, a little too pale, with eyes a little too wide. James takes the stairs every single time. The Riverside office. Plaza still operates. Security still works the night shift. The elevator still moves on its own some nights. Always starting at 11:47 p.m. Always the same route. And on the camera feed, for exactly 3 seconds, you can still see him. David Chen, forever trying to get home. Forever trapped in the building he never left.